That is so annoying, guys. Just because I played a little song right at the start of the video, they just basically kicked me out. So let me just wait for people to join back, hopefully. Okay. If you're coming back, thank you guys for your patience. So Instagram just closed down my video and said it's because you used copyright music, that music that doesn't belong to you. So I guess it's the end of fun. I can no longer play music during my lives. Oh dear. Anyway, let's get Javad back up.
Of time, so let's make the most of it. Yes, I've just explained. So if
happened. Yeah.
We're back, and I think the Instagram is being too strict.
It's so ridiculous, like playing 5 seconds, 10 seconds of a song in not so great quality. I mean, I don't understand. They're just losing their minds with their copyright. You know, they should track down more the illegal downloaders rather than, you know, streaming live a bit of music. I mean, come on. Anyway, so I don't know if you, do you want to introduce yourself to those who don't know you, those who might watch it later?
My full name, as you can see on my profile, is Javad Jaldi. I'm 18 years old. I've been teaching English for nearly 2 years, and now, if I want to talk about my English background, I got 7.5 in IELTS academic module when I was only 16 years old, 15 actually. And I've been studying English since I was a little child, around like 5 years old. And I probably know English better than my mother tongue. And today I'm here to discuss grammar and its importance to you, with you and your followers. And I'm at your service.
Thank you. At my service, at our service. So that's really interesting. So you've been learning it since a very young child, right? And I'm just curious about your take on learning grammar. And I think you will be different to majority of learners, because most people start learning seriously when they're a little bit older, or maybe they just get really get intensively studying it when they're older. So it's a bit different. But how was your experience with grammar? I mean, did you pay attention to the rules? Did you try to understand them? Or were you just picking things up naturally because you were a child?
To be honest, as a child, basically you don't understand grammar, neither in English as foreign language, neither in your mother tongue. That's what has been proved by scientists. So not in the beginning, and I didn't understand grammar until the time I was like intermediate student. I was an intermediate student. I started learning grammar intensively because that was the time I came to the realization that grammar is of utmost importance, on the contrary to what people are saying now. And I have my own rationale and of course reasons to say that grammar is important.
Oh, I hope a little connection cut.
Yeah,
not sure if it's me or you, but it's but the sound sometimes is jumping just a little bit, but I'm catching most of the points that you realized that as a child you couldn't appreciate it, but maybe a little bit later you learned the vital importance. And I'm glad you mentioned that a lot of people on Instagram are saying now grammar is a thing of the past. It's not cool. It's boring. Oh dear. Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, and I have a question for them who say that grammar is old and you should never waste your time learning grammar. And that is, don't you use grammar every day? It's very a good question, I guess. And I don't know why my picture is free, but
yeah, it's rotating. Okay, it's the same for you. Okay, don't worry. The sound is clear. The sound is perfect. So don't worry about the picture. At least for me. I hope for the followers as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're using grammar constantly. There is no sentence without grammar. I think to be optimistic, what they mean as an English teacher is this one, that vocabulary is more important, not the thing that grammar is not important. I think they mean that
Yeah,
grammar, vocabulary is important, more important.
yeah. I think some do, some don't. I think there are two instances here. I understand one of them. I completely disagree with the other. Not completely, but to an extent. Okay, I'm not going to say completely, because people have a reason for saying what they do. So one of the reasons that they say grammar isn't so important is because they feel like it holds people back from communicating and speaking, and they are afraid of making a mistake when they talk to people. Okay. And I completely get that. And I always encourage from elementary level, I get my students speaking. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect. Sorry, Javad, are you still there? Just can't see you. Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. So I agree with that. I think grammar is a bit of like, I made an analogy myself that grammar is a bit of a brake when like when you're driving, you have a brake. Grammar, it breaks you because it makes you have to stop and think about it. And then you have the acceleration when you just speak without thinking at all, you know? And I mean, no driving would be complete without both. If you're just accelerating or just braking, of course, you will not go forward, or you will never stop when you should stop. I mean, you know, that I don't know if that makes sense.
I think you need a basic grammar and intermediate grammar to start speaking. Without knowing grammar, you cannot speak English. Not only English, but I think any other language, because this is the base of the thing, the basic point and the structure. It is like the main part of the tree that the branches come from. The main part is some part of vocabulary, and then it is grammar. Because without grammar, you cannot use those vocabulary, and those vocabulary that you learn, you spend a lot of time on them, that they will be useless, I think.
I agree. I think of it, it's like building a house. You've got the base, and grammar for me is the base. If you haven't got the base, you can build beautiful walls, you can decorate it with idioms and nice expressions and phrasal verbs, right? But if the base isn't solid, the house will collapse, so to speak.
Excellent, yeah. And we have 7 different skills in English language. 4 of them are main skills, as I'm sure you know, and 3 of them are sub skills. What are the main skills? Listening, reading, writing, and speaking. These are the 4 main skills, and we have 3 sub skills: vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, as most people mistake it with accent. And all of them are connected to each other. You don't say, okay, I don't like grammar, okay, I will stick to the rest of the remaining 6. It could be like nonsense. Or I don't like listening, so let me put it aside and start speaking. Okay, listening without speaking will be useless. I don't like writing, okay, because that's one of the most neglected skills for students. And of course, IELTS and TOEFL candidates, and they most of the time run from it. And I think that's not the case, and you should never run from it. And not only you should not run from it, but you should stick
towards it.
Because today you will never achieve your goals, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I just want to, you know, someone said you should learn vocabulary first, grammar second. Yes, no, I think they should be learned together. And I think, you know, that there is more advanced grammar, of course, which is more complex and maybe not so essential for communication or intermediate level speaking. But you have the basic structures that you must get. Otherwise, how are you going to construct a sentence? You know?
Of course. And I always tell my students that the difference between grammar and vocabulary is this one, that grammar ends at a point, okay? You can like fulfill what you want with grammar, okay? Grammar ends, but vocabulary never ends. You can always learn vocabulary, but first learn some grammar so you can use those vocabularies at least. And grammar is the part of the language. You can't say, okay, I'm gonna learn some words. Okay, I have learned like the word strong. Okay, how do you want to say he is strong? Is another grammatical points. Okay, strong. So how do you want to use it? See, I think grammar is essential, and it is untouchable.
Yeah, vocabulary on its own doesn't, it's just separate words until you bring, grammar brings things together, right? One of the things that brings
Exactly.
things together. Absolutely. What do you think about people? Because another tendency why people say, I want teacher, I'm not going to name her. I'm not even going to say she or he. They said that just listen, like there was a third conditional sentence, okay? If I had done this, this would have happened, okay? And they said, well, just listen to that and just pick it up and remember it, and that's it. You don't have to even think about what it means or how it's put together. And I was so shocked by that because I think it's such a complex sentence that if you don't understand how it's put together and why, how can you then apply it to your own speaking? Can you just memorize that phrase and that's it? And then you will never be able to put a sentence together of your own without having any rules about it. So I was really shocked by that. What's your take on it?
I think that the thing that is the most shocking thing is this one that a teacher says this one. If it was like a learner or someone else, that would be like, okay, they don't know much about learning, techniques, methods, approaches. But when a teacher says something like this, you should like say, what are you saying? For example, you mentioned a very good example, third conditional. Without someone, either as a teacher, as a friend, as a whatever, if you don't get lesson, if you don't, if someone don't translate it for you, you will not learn it. Teaching and books, a resource, you need a resource, a pure source, something that is absolutely correct, because in that way you will not learn properly. But I disagree with most of the teachers these days on Instagram, and as I mentioned before, I think what they mean is this one, that vocabulary is more important, and I do agree that at some point vocabulary is more important.
It takes over, right? It just, yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
When you reach a certain level in grammar, okay, that's the time when you start learning vocabulary. Otherwise, if you start vocabulary without studying grammar, that will be absolutely useless. Idioms are great.
Great point.
Collocations, phrases.
Idioms should be left to the end, right? There should be the cherry on the cake rather than the cake itself, I think.
Put them on top. Okay, first things first, you need to learn, I think, some basic grammar. Then some. Everything must happen like simultaneously, like at the same time. You learn, for example, vocabulary, this much grammar, this much vocabulary, this much grammar, this much vocabulary, this much grammar, and at some point grammar ends. Okay, now it's time to improve your vocabulary. And that's what I think, and I'm trying to do.
Yeah, but then you might always have to go back to grammar at some point and revise it as well. You know, there's a bit of back and forth always with learning. Just a question for, it's a very good point that you made, yeah, and oh my God, the question slipped me. Had it in my brain, I think. It's my Sunday, and my brain is in off mode. I was going to say, what are the top mistakes that you think learners make when learning grammar? Like, what do they do wrong? Because, you know, I, as a teacher, I get so many students who come to me who say they already know intermediate grammar, and I'll explain why I'm talking about intermediate grammar in a second, maybe after. I don't want to take your time with it, but they say they already know it, and then when we start picking it apart, they have so many gaps, so many misunderstandings. They lack some of the, not all, but some fundamental knowledge. What do they do wrong? Like, why does it happen? They've been studying grammar, they've been learning it, they've been practicing non-stop, and I mean, why do they still not know it?
It happens nearly to the English teachers around the world, that their students think that they know grammar, but the thing is this one, that they only know grammar, they don't know how to use it. I think the way that I recommend for learning grammar is this one, that first, you should be taught by a teacher or a book, a valid source, I mean. Then you should make examples, personal examples. The more examples you make, the better you get at grammar. It is not like listening, for example. Okay, you listen and answer some questions. That is not like that. You learn grammar, and you should make examples. Without making examples, you will easily forget that grammar, and you will definitely make mistakes in the future. And I recommend practicing and reviewing grammar like every 2 weeks, just like reading newspaper, just easily.
Yeah,
Like not,
don't just think you will learn the rules and that's it. Practice a little bit and forget about it. Be prepared to go back to it, revise it, practice again. Javad, I just have a suggestion. Can I remove you, and then could you try and join again and see if that maybe that way we can see you? That would be nice. All right, thank you. All right, let's see if that works.
It would be nice too. We've got very clear sound, but it would be really nice.
See Javad as well. Yeah, so now it's good.
I can see myself. Great.
Wow. It's like looking in the mirror. I exist again.
Yeah, I was just feeling that part for myself, and now it's much better.
Excellent.
Make examples with grammar. That's what I recommend.
Absolutely. Make examples, practice, go back, revise again. The other thing is, like, and I do want to talk a little bit about my intermediate grammar course, but not too much. I don't want to bombard people with it. But I found that from my experience that just visualizing things, just finding those tricks and those connections and those logical ways and visualizations, and maybe putting all the tenses together, has really helped my students. And I was surprised that they never studied like this before. I said, has anyone ever explained this to you? Has anyone ever said that to you? Has anyone ever explained this concept to you? And they went, no.
Like the quiz.
Yeah, like the quiz. I mean, people got the present perfect past simple wrong because they don't understand the fundamental concept of when to use each of the tenses. Well, a couple of my students got it wrong and they were very embarrassed, so I did say you need to revise again.
And I'm sure if you put an quiz like that, that's the third usage of present simple, and that is for future arrangements. Most of the students don't know this one. For example, my class starts tomorrow at 10, okay? It is present simple for the future. Most of the people don't know this one, and it is important because you hear it in daily conversation, and I think you need at least upper intermediate grammar to be able to communicate. And if you want to, for example, take part in IELTS, TOEFL, GRE, I don't know, PTE, any of these exams, you need to study advanced more because of writing, not because of speaking. Because that is the time, because in most of the times our focus as teachers
and reading, and the reading part
and course books are to focus on communication, to speaking, not writing. And that is the time when there's like a big problem. The students make like acute problem, and that is they don't know how to write. They don't know how to write an essay, like a formal letter, or how to like describe a graph. And that is a time when you should learn more advanced grammar. But for people who just want to learn how to communicate in daily life with their friends, with if they want to go abroad and just live there, they don't need that much writing. I think upper intermediate, that would be enough for grammar, not vocabulary. But if you want to have academic like education in an English language, English speaking country, you definitely need more advanced grammar. We are looking forward for the advanced, of course, grammar like course from you, as you had intermediate and upper intermediate.
Finishing up upper intermediate. Yeah, maybe no. I've got pronunciation coming next on my mind. That's what I think. Yeah, because I had one of the students in my intermediate grammar said, "Oh, I love how you sound. I've never had British English before. Can you make a pronunciation course?" I said, "Okay, maybe." But thank you so much for mentioning that. Yeah. Sure. Sorry.
Can I say something about pronunciation? This live is about grammar, but I think it's a very vital point. It's very important. Is that most of the students and most of the learners mistake pronunciation with accent, and that is a problem. If you look at the band descriptor of, for example, IELTS or TOEFL, you will see that there is nothing mentioned about accent. They
No.
just mention pronunciation. And it is interesting that you are being measured in 4 different skills in speaking. Lexical resource, coherence and cohesion, fluency,
Vocabulary,
generally,
how you
vocabulary,
build it,
yeah,
how you build the
grammar,
sentences.
pronunciation,
You see,
pronunciation. See,
the grammar builds into that cohesion because grammar helps you to go logically from one point to another,
yeah,
right? So,
band descriptor says, the band descriptor says lexical resource, which is vocabulary, fluency and cohesion, generally, speaking
mhm,
without pauses, long pauses, grammar and pronunciation. See, 4 items. One of them is vocabulary, the other one is
very good.
pronunciation. So pronunciation is as much important as grammar is, as vocabulary is. And most of the people don't know this one and say, okay, they understand what I say, and that is enough. No, it is not, because sometimes, for example, the word sweet. If you say suit, the meaning changes. If you say sweat, again, it changes to something
Oh,
else. It is
I
very
saw an
important.
English teacher recently, non-native, but that's besides the point. She was teaching how to say suit, and she said suit. And she had a phonetic next to it, and she said suit, and I went, oh my God. And she's like positioning herself super professional, super amazing teacher. That just
Yeah.
made me so angry. But I sent her a message, and I was just, whatever. But people will learn from her and pick up her mistakes. That just makes me so frustrated. But anyway, that's a frustration for another day, I think. What's gonna say? Oh my God, what's wrong with my brain? Sorry to interrupt you.
I always tell my students that you will be like me in the future, whether liking it or not, because you will take my mistakes and you will take my like weaknesses and like plus points. As like now I am like my instructor, and that's what happened usually and normally. So that's why I say your source must be valid and pure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So another point that I hear, but if any top points you have to go, please let me know.
No, no,
Don't
no.
want to hold you back.
I'm free for like
Um, another thing I hear a lot is, well, why should I bother speaking correct English when natives make mistakes all the time when they speak all the time?
good question.
Why should I bother speaking correctly? Why should I waste my time and energy? I mean, it's okay if I make mistakes. They do it. I can do it too. What do you think of that?
I think that they look at wrong native speakers. For example, in America, in American English, we have a kind of American English that is called AAE, African American English, full of slangs, full of like short forms. They have their own grammar. It doesn't make sense as like when you look at it academic wise. And say, okay, they are speaking English. Okay, they are speaking on the street, not in like college, university. If you want to learn grammar, you should learn it. Grammar, English, whatever, you should learn it academic. That's what I say always. It is.
Yeah, you should follow the academic structure. I mean, unless you're going to live in a specific part of the world and interact with specific people who don't really care about how you speak and speak incorrectly, you should probably learn to speak like them if you want to fit in. However, for all the other purposes, stick with academic English. Absolutely agree with you, Javan.
And why be wrong when you can be why be wrong when you can be right? Sorry to interrupt. Why be wrong when you can be right?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, I also think they're confused because they get confused with fundamental knowledge, fundamental grammar, with what sometimes happens or slips of the tongue. Because I notice sometimes I use present perfect, and then because I focus on noun, and suddenly I mention a time in the past, because then I think, oh, I want to mention that. And that way I do make a mistake from time to time, or sometimes slips of the tongue, or sometimes you just drop some grammar for speaking more, like speaking faster, or for text speak. But I think before you take on that sort of natural approach, you should really learn the basics, because you shouldn't be trying, I think if you don't have understanding of fundamentals and just try to pick up this natural incorrectness, then you just get a mishmash of native mistakes, your own mistakes, you know, and then it just won't make any sense, you know. It's, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
not recommended.
the perfect example you mentioned, like it is like building a building. If you don't make the first floor in the best way possible, if the first floor is not
Ground
solid,
floor in Britain.
ground floor, yeah, in Britain, I would say, um, ground floor, if it is not solid, so you cannot build like the 10th floor, okay? So a basic grammar is very important, very, very important. And we have sometimes in our
Exactly.
classes, like idiot students making like fundamental mistakes, as you say. They have some time to work on it still, but when you reach advanced level, you should everything should be advanced. Your grammar, of course. I think someone is getting me tired. So long conversation. Sorry.
Well, they can
Um,
leave. I mean, people are leaving and coming as you wish. You know, if it's not interesting for you, that's fine. I think it's fundamentally important, and the amount of students I see getting it wrong and the amount of students you see getting it wrong shows the importance of this conversation. And if you think it's boring, you already know it, or you can't be bothered to learn about it, that's completely up to you. Don't worry about it.
yeah, I was saying advanced students, everything should be advanced, like grammar, vocabulary, reading, writing, speaking, listening. If you are like weak in one of them, okay, that's okay. You should brush up on it. If not,
Yeah.
you should get back to basic level because it is important. It is silly to say that I am advanced student, I am advanced English speaker, and you make silly mistakes, like they say she talk, for example, one of the common mistakes. I have like my notebook here full of my students' mistake.
Aha, you keep a collection,
No, no,
a
I
special
write them
collection of this.
down at the end. For example, one of them, it's talk about. See? Basic grammar mistake. In
Yeah,
basic
yeah.
form, acceptable. Yeah, that's it.
The
I think
the other thing I get a lot is present simple. People just think present simple is the top tense. I don't know why. They just think it's a safe tense, it's a top tense. Let's use it for instead of present continuous. Let's use it instead of any past tenses, instead of future tenses. Like it's a safe tense. You know, people will understand. I don't know why. They just love it. They just like think that's the base tense. Let's just speak it, and other people will understand what I'm trying to say. Oh my God.
yeah, because that's the first grammar they learn. That's I think the reason. And it is
It's true.
like a word. You know, we have 504 essential words. I don't know if it is like available in Europe. The first word is abandon. Okay, the book starts with the word abandon. And then I ask my students, do you know 504? Have you studied it? They say, I abandon. Yes, I have studied this one. And it is like that. They have that is the first thing they have learned, and that's why they love it. And still, they don't know that it has got 3 usages. Future. See, that's the problem. And
The lack of understanding of all these fundamentals. Absolutely. You know, I literally had a student who wrote to me just before the lesson. He said, I turn on my computer. And he's an upper intermediate student, for goodness sake. And I'm like, have you turned off on the computer? Are you turning it on now? Are you going to turn it on in a minute? Like, what's going on? You know, it literally, that's a really good example when people say, oh, grammar is not important for speaking. Well, I'm sorry. This was a time when he was communicating something to me and I was sitting there. Well, I was just waiting, but I was trying to guess what on earth he meant. And, you know, you really don't want grammar in a way, like lack of knowledge, to hold you back from being able to put your point across. And I think that's another fundamental use of grammar, is making sure that what you say comes across clearly. Because I think if you lack the knowledge, you will often speak and not even be sure if the other person understood what you wanted to say. And I mean, come on, like, don't you want someone to understand what you want to say? And I think grammar, I mean, vocabulary is also super important to use the right words, but you need the syntax, you need the structure, you need to use the right tense, like in a situation with my students. So it just puzzles me. People go, grammar is not important for communication. And I think they don't explain enough what they mean by that. What they mean is, do not stop yourself from speaking just because you don't know advanced or you don't know all the grammar or all the rules. But they're not saying that never bother looking at the rules, never bother trying to improve or learn more and better, you know. I mean, that's what gets me. I think if you send a message, grammar is not important for communication, you should really explain what you mean, because I think so many students now go, so I don't have to worry about grammar. You know, lots of teachers are telling me, I don't need to worry, so I'm not going to worry. You know, there's this trend.
And another thing about grammar is this one, that it exists in listening, in reading, in writing, in speaking. It exists. It is everywhere. On the streets, in the book, on the social media, everywhere. But for example, pronunciation, only it is in like speaking, okay, or maybe listening. But grammar is very, very important in writing, especially as I mentioned before, and in speaking.
Absolutely. Exactly. Someone gave a nice feedback. Good conversation. Thank you so much. And maybe because it's the first term we learned was present simple, so they agree with you, Javad. That's a good point. Yeah.
I think it exists everywhere, and that's what makes it important.
Cool.
For example,
so I was hoping for some more questions from people. Grammar shouldn't be an obstacle for beginners to learn English, but it's not an obstacle. I think that's another thing. I think that's the wrong mindset. Grammar is not an obstacle. Grammar is not your enemy. Grammar is not your, it's not something you should hate. It's something you should really embrace. I know it can be tough sometimes, but like, it's your tool. It's a tool in your toolbox that you can use to communicate, to write, I mean, it's not an obstacle, really.
I want to say something. What did I want to say? I was trying to say this one. They made a monster out of grammar, an enemy out of grammar, because they have been taught grammar in the wrong way. See?
Yes. So let's cover that quickly. So what is the wrong way? So they didn't practice. They didn't get a chance to.
The wrong way is without providing the students with the correct context. It can be a reading context, a written one, a listening. Before you teach them that grammar, for example, present simple, tell them to write about their routine, for example. What do they do from morning to when they want to go to bed? Or when you want to teach them, do you know what I do when I want to teach present simple? I'm sorry, present perfect. When the classes were not online, I used to limp off in the class. I have pain in my leg. And the student would say, what happened? I said, I have had an accident. And I would write that on the board, okay? And say, I had broken my leg, okay? And I would then mention past simple, I broke my leg last year, to get them to really understand the meaning and the context and the cases they should use it.
Wonderful.
These simple techniques can really help students. To learn grammar better. I have seen teachers who spend like an hour on a very simple grammar, and they think that they are doing the right thing. That is not. When you teach one thing, for example, grammar, for example, take present perfect continuous into account, it will be boring, okay? If you even tell a funny story for an hour, that will be boring, let alone grammar. For people who are seeing
keep it short.
Keep it short. I think grammar, more than 15 to 20 minutes, that would be like useless.
Every point shouldn't be longer than that. I have kept my videos to maximum 15 minutes, usually under 10 minutes on each point.
I didn't know that.
So I'm following your lovely instructions. Yeah, of course I can't give the practice to on the course, but I think the fundamental understanding and usage, I certainly have tried to cover that. And a bit of practice. But yeah, someone said you're absolutely right, Javad, that you need to give the opportunity to practice and get the real fundamental understanding of it, the application to different contexts, to real life, how to use it. Yeah, not just have a dead grammar, like just some rules and some, no real fundamental understanding of it.
I have a good question.
How can I remember grammar easily? Sorry.
Good question. I have mentioned it before, earlier today. Make examples. For example, when you learn present perfect, make like 50 examples, and I will promise you, I will guarantee you, not only you will never forget that grammar, but also you can learn it in daily conversation, in written and spoken form. That's what I recommend.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's helpful to learn the rules to start, but I always, like, when we start speaking to my students and practicing, I put it into practice. As soon as they make mistake, I'm like, what's your mistake? And I try to think and remember to what we learned. And because they have the fundamental understanding, they can connect that to the practice, to the knowledge to the theoretical knowledge that they picked up. So it's, I always say go back and forth between theory and practice, right? Don't just think theory, that's it, and then practice, and that's it, and never go back to theory. There's no harm in going back again and again until it becomes intuitive. You will get to a point, guys, absolutely, I promise you will, if you skip studying hard and the right way, that grammar, that this whole syntax will become more intuitive. However, you shouldn't start, like as a lot of teachers are advising with grammar, thinking that grammar is going to be intuitive from the start. It will not. Yeah, we start with logic, and then that logic and that practice becomes your intuition over a period of time. That's my experience. That's how I see it. I don't know, Javad, do you agree or disagree with me?
And another thing to add to and to answer this guy is pick a good teacher. Choose a good one that can teach you grammar in a good way, in the proper way.
But that's the problem. A lot of students don't know who is a good teacher. Someone is explaining something or just reading off the book. I mean, it's really hard to know, because I wouldn't be getting all these students who don't know. They went to academies. They had private teachers before who supposedly were teaching them grammar, but obviously not well enough, not fundamentally enough for them to understand it and know it and be able to apply it. So I think, yes, it's well to say that pick a good teacher, but guys, you have to maybe get someone else to assess their ability or something, because I think it's, students are vulnerable. When they are of a certain level, they are vulnerable. They don't have the judgment level of what is a good explanation and what isn't. I think it's hard to make that assessment until later, unfortunately.
We can teach them who's a good teacher.
You and me.
No. Like, we as teachers, okay? Evaluate yourself. Self-assessment can definitely help you to learn if you are learning or not, okay? That's what I understand. But you can definitely understand whether you are improving or not. If you are improving, that's the right teacher. If you are not improving, you are just wasting your time, money, most importantly, like time, I said, not money.
And money, and I think, time is invaluable. Money you can earn, but time, you can never get it back. You're right. Yeah, that's a good assessment. Because I see that when I explain to my students, they go, okay, now I understand. Whereas if you're left with a feeling that just, like, things are not connecting, it's just not clicking after a few lessons, after practicing, there's something wrong. Either you're not learning very well, or the teacher hasn't explained it very well to you. So that could be a nice self-assessment.
Another characteristic of a good teacher is this one, that you can't wait to attend the class again. For example, if you have classes twice a week, you can't wait, and the moment you get out of the class, you want to go back. You want to go back in. You never get tired of that teacher. That's another very important point. But I can say that teacher is important, like 70%. like 20 or 25% is like the students and 5% the sources. Like
You think it's that little? I would say it's 50. It depends on the level. It depends on how independent the student is. I would shift the percentages towards the student a bit more, because I think teacher is important, but in the end, it's the student who puts in the sweat and hard work. Yeah.
60% like teachers, courses, main course books, sources, and all these things, and 40% like students. Sometimes it is their fault that they don't learn, but sometimes it's not their fault, they have bad teachers.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the situation and depends on the level as well, etc. But yeah, absolutely. So it takes two to tango. Yeah, so can't expect one to do the work. Do you have to dash off, or you? How are you for timing?
Take the time, like in 10 minutes my class starts.
Ah, okay. But do you need to take a break or something? I mean, I'm not pushing you to leave. I'm just being concerned.
I've taken my break.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, here for some more questions.
The percentage varies based on the level of the students, how intensively they study, etc. Yeah. So teaching is an art. Sometimes it's a gift. Yes, I agree with that. I think. How did you know you wanted to be a teacher, Javad? What made you want to go into teaching? Like,
I have been into an language institute for like 12 years of my life. So I'm fond of educational places like university, school, institutes, academies. And the other thing that I really like about being teacher, I think teacher is a passion, is love. The money is not that much good, you know it. You can make.
It's not that great.
You can make,
we're not millionaires, are we?
You can make like much more money by being an engineer, for example, or a doctor or whatever. But what I really like about teaching is this one, that I am in touch with people. That is really, really important to me. For example, some people tell me, okay, you are a very good English speaker and writer. Could you please translate, for example, this book for us, this notes book or whatever? I say, I can't do it because I cannot remain silent for hours and sit on my room and don't talk to anyone. I think this is a part of my character, that I really like talking to other people, strangers, different people from different social classes. Like I like talking to, I have students that are doctors, engineers, sociologists, everywhere, and I really like this one. This is the most interesting part of teaching for me, is that you interact with different people from different social classes.
Absolutely, that is the fantastic part. So just English should be related to daily life. You learn much faster. Very good point. And Indonesia, Swin says they learn first step by step. So first they memorize vocabulary. Interesting approach. I mean, it depends how long. I mean, if you spend 5 minutes, or if you spend 1 hour, but I mean, if you spend like a month just memorizing vocabulary, I'm not sure that's the best way to go about it.
I doubt it, because when you cannot make sentences, that would be like nothing.
Yeah, just memorizing words and words and like lots of words. Not sure that works.
I have a nephew. He's like 3 years old. And believe me, he knows like 500 English vocabularies. And now I'm recently teaching him how to say sentences. Whenever he sees me, he says, Uncle, what is this in English? I say, it is, for example, a notebook. And he is really, really talented. He can remember that one like 2 months after. Yeah, learning vocabulary is good, but in the first step, but not more than like a month. Because that would be, you need to say sentence. By just knowing words, you cannot learn English. We have another one. There are 2 ways of teaching grammar: inductive and deductive. Yes, and each of them depends on the student's level.
I don't like. Don't use these terms. This really irritates me when teachers come and show off their vocabulary. Sorry, I'm sure you're very intelligent and stuff, but don't bombard other students with this vocabulary. What do you mean by that? I mean, make it
Uh,
simple for people to understand. Why do they need to learn these terms? That's another thing that makes me angry about some teaching. And I think that's another thing that confuses students. Some students come to me and start bombarding me with terminology. And I'm like, why the hell did you bother learning this terminology? Like, do you
yeah.
need it? Are you going to be an English teacher? Even if you're going to be an English teacher, you don't need to be using this word. You can explain, like, I mean, some words are necessary, like noun or verb or whatever, but even that you can substitute by who or what or action or whatever. I really don't like this overuse of this teaching terminology, and I think a lot of teachers do that, and I think it's not conducive to learning at all. It puts students off, to be honest, and it confuses them and makes them focus on the wrong things. They spend their energy learning these words that they don't need to know. Yeah. All these
But to
terms
like
that I need
clarify
to
for
know.
these terms, inductive grammar teaching is to go from examples to rules, and deductive means to go from rules to examples. Going from examples to rules is much more appreciated according to the recent researchers like Jackson Richards, Remy Harmer, absolute legends in case of teaching. All right, it's a bit difficult to
Thank you for clarifying for the learners, for the non-teachers. Yeah, it's difficult to master because we're not in English area. So I think, sorry to say, I think it's partially an excuse. So I will tell you the amount of people I've met in the UK who have lived there for 10, 15, 20 years. I've met someone who moved to the UK. Came to me as a student. She moved to the UK at maybe a couple of years later than me age. And her English wasn't even intermediate level. And she's lived there for, how long has she lived there for? I think 10 years or something like that. But I was just shocked by how little she could speak. And she's been living in the UK non-stop in the English environment, so.
I never had the English environment. I've never been to an English environment. What I recommend is watching movies and interacting with native speakers. That would help, but don't learn from native speakers. Whatever you learn, check it in a valid source, because they make more mistakes than non-native speakers, believe me.
Okay.
Sometimes,
it
some
depends.
of them, no
It
offense.
depends how educated they are. It depends.
No
I mean,
offense.
come on, don't attack native speakers.
especially American English speakers. British native speakers, they speak much better.
Well said.
They're related. Well said. About I say something back interactive is learning. Yeah, what I use, the method that I use for teaching is CLT, Communicative Language Teaching, which then goes to different methods. But there is no best method. Why? Because of 4 reasons: age of learners, level of learners, where you live, culture of the learners, and their learning style. 4 reasons for
learning style and objectives, and learning objectives as well, I think. Yeah. So yeah.
Reach any more easily than they used to in the past. Yes, of course, we can. There's an application, I think it is italki, if I'm not mistaken. You can find native speakers in any living language in the world easily for the people who are working.
Absolutely, yeah. You've got speaking clubs, you've got other learners, you've got exposure to lots of videos, lots of podcasts, radio, TV. So I think now there's really no excuse. I mean, maybe you will not be like completely native, but you can get to a good level of fluency without living in the target language country, mainly in English. So don't put yourself that barrier again. Don't hold yourself back by that. Yeah.
To stay positive.
Yeah. Like Javad. Yeah, we've got an example, a living example.
I used to talk to them in front of the mirror or to the wall for like 3 or 4 hours a day. See, it is not that much difficult. Just need to have a goal and enough energy and I think enthusiasm. That's what makes language learning easy. If you don't like it, okay, never mind. But if you want to do it and you don't know how to do it, ask a professional one, a teacher, educational like consultant. That's what I think. Both vocabulary and grammar are essential, but for me, grammar is prior. It depends on your level. If
You
you
know,
are like
I have an advanced student. I have an advanced student who's extremely fluent. Her language is fluent. She speaks beautifully. And she went to me, Maria, I need you to explain to me the fundamentals of intermediate grammar, of upper and intermediate grammar, that she missed that from her learning. So she reached a very high level, very fluent, very confident in speaking, but she really feels uncomfortable by not understanding those fundamental rules. So she's going backwards in order to go forward. And that's another situation that can happen. You know, it really depends on your personal situation, I think.
Before I started teaching, I didn't know the names to the tenses because I have learned them like naturally by just listening and being corrected by my teachers. I used to be in an English speaking environment for 3 hours, 9 hours a week. And that really helped me in the past. And when I started teaching, okay, they said, okay, what is present perfect continuous? And I would, then I started learning their names. Okay, it is this one, it is that one, it is called this one. And then I started learning grammar because I wanted to teach it. If you don't want to teach grammar, you don't need to know the names, but you just need to know how to use them and the context of using them. The names are not that much important.
Absolutely. The structure and the application, the context, why do we use it in each situation? Absolutely. So you have a lesson now, I think.
Yeah, but my students, I think he's being absent. I think you have this habit of having like a pen or pencil in your hand so you can talk better. It is like a teacher thing because I have seen a pen.
I don't know. I haven't noticed. No, it's just sometimes a scribble. I like to scribble. Don't know. I haven't psychoanalyzed myself. But thank you for offering me that analysis. Oh dear. Yeah, I don't know if it's a teacher thing or Maria thing or just, no idea. So yeah, they say watch films, listen to English news, exposure to native English will help you to improve your English. To an extent, I think it cannot replace structured learning when you are an adult learner. If you're a child, maybe you can learn completely intuitively like Javad did from the start. But I think as an adult, it's really hard to just pick things up naturally all the time. I think to an extent, yes, but I think it doesn't replace structured learning.
That is really, really helpful, but to an extent, you can never speak just by listening, and you can never write by just listening. Because writing and speaking are productive skills. The more you produce, the better you get. Listening and reading are receptive skills. The more I'm not trying to use like terminology or whatever. These are just what we say. Listening and reading are, the more you receive, the better you get. So it will not help you with speaking, but just with listening and reading.
Exactly. Cool. All right. I think we've covered a lot of points today, bombarded with knowledge our followers. So I'm sure they have a lot to pick up.
I hope that was useful to them. Anything about the grammar course you want to mention?
To talk about mine. Yeah, thank you. I don't know what people want to know. I'll probably make a video like you suggested on guiding people through how I do it, how it's covered. The good thing is you get a 30-day money back guarantee. So if you absolutely hate it, you can always ask for your money back, which I hope you wouldn't. But if you do, that's fine. That's your right. And I've got it up on 2 websites for the moment, just intermediate grammar. Upper intermediate is coming soon. It's on Udemy, if you know it. And I've also published a course on Speak Like David's website, a wonderful teacher in his own right. So you can get it on 2 websites, basically. Yeah. if you're interested.
And
Just follow the tap link in my profile and check it out. And you've also got free demo on Udemy for the present simple, for the present tenses and the future tenses. So as you said, use of present continuous to talk about future arrangements and things like that, common misunderstandings, etc.
great.
Thank you.
So, any other followers or you, Maria? Any other questions from the followers or you?
For you, you mean? I don't know. So watching Maria's live is important. Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be useful. Great. Speak like native to be intelligible. Yeah. You should. I mean, it's good to aim for sounding like native as much as possible, but that's not the most important thing. I mean, you have to think about why you're learning English. Do you need to be like a native, or it's enough to have, say, intermediate or upper intermediate, or beginner C1 level or whatever? Really, it's that you have so many courses these days. Sound like a native, speak like a native, and you go, okay, it's good to sound natural, but are you really going to sound and speak like a native? It's really hard to get there, And do you need to? Do you want to? I mean. That's the point.
And guys, be realistic. It takes time to be fluent, to become fluent and speak like a native speaker. They say like with our course, in 10 days, you can speak like a native speaker. That's nonsense. It takes time, guys. Be realistic and think about it.
Yeah, those marketing tricks. I mean, now they use 3 months, which sounds more realistic than 10 days, but it's still not real. I mean, 3 years maybe if you study hard, yeah.
From basic to IELTS 7 and 6.5 in our institute, in our club, it takes like 8 to 10 months. That's I think realistic.
It depends on the level of study. I always say when a student comes to me, how long will it take for me to get to the next level? I'm like, how much effort are you going to be putting in? How much are you going to study between lessons? How much are you going to absorb things and prepare for the lessons, That really depends. How quickly do you absorb information? That's another thing. That's partly up to me as a teacher to present the information in the easiest possible way, but it's also up to them to go and practice between the lessons. So I never give a timeline. I can give a rough when I see how the student is working and their rhythm, I can give a rough estimate, but until I see that, I never give a timeline. Because students go, if you tell them like a year and they go, oh, okay, so really it doesn't matter what I do in that year. It's just you gave me a year, so in a year I'll get to this level. So like I think it's psychologically, it like something flips in their head and they go, I don't need to study. It's not about the effort I'm making. It's about the year's time. So I'm very careful when I give a timeline, to be honest.
I tell them I can guarantee my effort, but I cannot guarantee yours. I know how much effort I'm going to put, but not from your side. I will do my job, but it depends on you because in the end,
Yeah, exactly. Speakers of English from other countries surpass those of England. Guys, be careful when you say that. That really is irritating to listen to because what do you mean by that? Like, I mean, just because your vocabulary, some advanced words or someone knows some advanced words doesn't make them a natural speaker immediately. It's about pronunciation, intonation. It's about the fluidity. It's about how you put the sentences together. It's about using it in the right context. So I think I have students who have learned I don't get them personally, but I've seen students who get very complex vocabulary and they still haven't got the basics of grammar, the basics of pronunciation. And I mean, does that make you better than a native speaker? Of course not. And it's not a competition.
If you want to learn language to communicate, it doesn't matter. If you want to learn language to show off, that's important.
I've had that so many times. I'm better than a native speaker, and I know it gives you a good feeling. I know it's a nice message to feel. Oh, I know more complex words than natives don't use. Guys, there's a reason why natives don't use complex words in daily life. It doesn't mean they don't know them. It's just because those words are not applicable in their daily life. They're not necessary to convey the same message. I think it's natural for a human being to go with the more simple words, the words that just get the message across, you know. So don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's it. I didn't get them right.
I think it's going to be switching off in a second because I've got an hour limit on my page. So, any other final things to share, Javad, or anyone else?
I think don't underestimate grammar, don't underrate it. Don't overrate it either, but it is important. It's one of the basic necessities of learning language, and I recommend learning grammar. And what you see on Instagram is not real. It's not either they don't know what they are saying or they don't wanna say it, because grammar is very, 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 very important. Look at them and ask them, you are using grammar now. Yes, don't you? And they are using grammar. Be realistic, think about it, and try the trial on for the grammar course.
Check it out.
From really guys, it's
Thank
just
you.
and if you like it, you can like sign up for it. I'm sure that it's great. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure that
I haven't seen it, but I know it's great. I like
that.
that.
Because I know a teacher, and I have seen intermediate course. Your intermediate course, that's great. And I'm sure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time and offering your wisdom and sharing your experience and your advice. I think it's so invaluable because you are a learner and now you're a teacher, so it's really, really invaluable, I think, to many learners and teachers alike. Likewise. All right, guys. Thank you for joining. Enjoy the rest of your evening.